Over the past 10 years, China has provided loans amounting to hundreds of billions of dollars to developing nations as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, which is also commonly referred to as the BRI. The BRI was initially envisioned by Xi Jinping as the centerpiece of China's foreign policy with the aim of enhancing China's global influence. However, in recent years, many of these countries have informed China that they are unable to repay their debts, which has resulted in China renegotiating or writing off significant amounts of money. This video will delve into the BRI, its objectives, the reasons for its ineffectiveness, and potential outcomes going forward. To begin with, let's examine the Belt and Road Initiative, which was initially introduced by Xi Jinping in 2013. Essentially, this initiative entails China providing substantial financial support to developing countries for constructing infrastructure related to trade, which would establish a connection between China and the rest of the world. The BRI is an enormously vast project, possibly the most extensive cross-border infrastructure initiative in history, encompassing approximately $800 billion in loans and infrastructure plans, spanning over 100 developing countries. As a result of the BRI, China has rapidly emerged as the world's biggest single creditor, and the amount of money that China lends to developing nations surpasses the total combined sum led by other bilateral lenders. In principle, the BRI is a commendable concept, as infrastructure development initiatives can be a beneficial investment for developing nations. There have been successful BRI projects, including the construction of new hydropower dams in Uganda, a fresh system of oil and gas pipelines in Central Asia, and a railway spanning 750 kilometers from Addis Ababa to Djibouti. Furthermore, the BRI serves as positive news for China since it has a surplus of funds, mainly due to its export-heavy economy, and the initiative produces an excellent avenue to allocate its resources. Additionally, it enhances China's global influence as developing countries appreciate the loans and assistance that Chinese construction firms often contribute towards the project. During the 2010s, many analysts criticized the West for failing to provide comparable loans to developing countries, resulting in China taking over as the primary lender for developing nations. The West is apprehensive about providing financial aid to developing countries because Western loans are typically associated with more conditions and bureaucratic procedures, which is why developing countries prefer Chinese loans. Initially, China's lenient lending practices were reasonable during the period when the global economy was thriving. Most countries were repaying their loans, and China was gradually making its way into the global economy. However, in recent years, as the global financial situation has worsened, an increasing number of countries have informed China that they cannot repay their debts. A recent study has reported that since 2013, China has had to reduce a minimum of 20 countries by referring or reorganizing approximately $232 billion worth of loans. China employs two mechanisms, namely new loans and swap lines. Swap lines entail the Chinese central bank informing another country's central bank that they can convert as much of their local currency into Chinese renminbi as they require. For instance, China has a swap line agreement with Argentina, which enables the country to strengthen its foreign reserves by converting a significant amount of its pesos into renminbi, something it has done 8 times in the past 8 years. This arrangement is beneficial to Argentina because it enhances its foreign currency reserves, and it allows the country to more effortlessly convert the renminbi into dollars to repay international creditors. China has established swapline arrangements with 40 countries, ostensibly to encourage the use of renminbi in global trade. However, these swap lines are mostly utilized by countries struggling to repay their BRI loans. The frequency of bailouts has skyrocketed in recent years, rising from $1 billion in 2011 to over $40 billion in 2021. These bailout figures are remarkable, suggesting that approximately a quarter of all China's BRI loans have been unsuccessful. While data for 2022 is not yet available, it is likely that the number of failed loans has continued to rise given the high interest rates, which have added further pressure to the financial situations of developing countries. There are at least 2 main reasons why so many loans have failed. Firstly, many Chinese loans were structured with variable interest rates, which is an uncommon practice in international lending. As interest rates have risen, an increasing number of countries have been unable to meet their repayment obligations. The second reason why so many loans have failed is that a lot of them were just plain impractical. For instance, Montenegro took out a loan of $1 billion to construct a road leading to nowhere that remains incomplete and is plagued with allegations of corruption. Similarly, Sri Lanka borrowed billions of dollars to build the Lotus Tower, a lavish project with no realistic prospects of generating any return on investment. Meanwhile, in Ecuador, Chinese contractors built a dam near an active volcano, and more than 7,000 cracks were subsequently discovered. The outlook appears bleak for China, as they have attempted to recover funds by postponing repayments and providing fresh loans. But historical evidence shows that this approach is often ineffective. In reality, the additional debt usually exacerbates the debtor country's incapacity to repay their initial debts. Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Zambia have already sought help from the International Monetary Fund or IMF after their Chinese debts became unmanageable. At some point, China may have to acknowledge the need to cancel a substantial portion of these loans. When this occurs, China will need to engage with the International Monetary Fund and other Western lenders, such as the United States. This is because many countries, like Sri Lanka, owe money to numerous creditors, meaning that when they default, everyone must come together to negotiate a new debt arrangement that is equitable for all creditors and sustainable for the borrower. The Paris Club was established to provide a platform for major creditors to negotiate debt restructuring, but it does not include China, which is currently the largest single lender. China has shown limited interest in participating in these multilateral negotiations, which could be detrimental to both the heavily indebted countries and the global economy. Prolonged debt crises exacerbate the situation, increasing the likelihood of international consequences. A potential outcome of China's lending to developing countries is that it may lend less money in the future. In hindsight, China's substantial lending to these nations appear imprudent, and the Chinese Communist Party may proceed with caution in the future. Furthermore, these developing countries may be cautious about accepting Chinese loans, given their previous experience and because many citizens are skeptical of China's economic impact on the national politics. What do you think? Will China recoup all of these loans? Comment your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with our latest uploads.